The story begins with a king lying down on his royal bed. He never believed the phenomenon people referred to as the light at the end of the tunnel. He was worried about the cause of his own death, and all he could remember was that he was alone in his room, looking out over the city, when suddenly his body felt heavy, and he lay down on his bed. He wondered if he had been poisoned or assassinated. He thought of those who might have done it. But as a king, he was a public figure, and many people might want him dead. The next thing he heard was, "Congratulations, sir and madam, it's a healthy boy." He began to wonder if he had been born himself. His parents started to admire him, and his dad gave him a name, Art. Weeks later, he realized that his mother, Alice, was a gentle and kind-hearted person, and his father, Reynolds, was a dependable and charismatic man. Art was thankful for his new, loving family. To him, it seemed like he had been transported to a much more archaic period. He had studied his surroundings for the past few weeks and was confident that he had a firm grasp on what he could expect. Then, Reynolds, his dad, arrived home and picked him up, throwing him up to play with him. As expected from such a fragile body, Art fell and injured his leg when his father started to row him together. His mother collected him from his dad and treated him with magic. Seeing this, his mindset about his surroundings changed, and he realized he knew nothing about the world. In his previous life, Art was a king who led armies, dueled representatives from other countries, and accomplished many incredible feats. However, he was never as proud as he is in his present life, where he finds himself more adorable when he looks at himself in the mirror. After Alice took him to bed, Art left his room and snuck into the room he had discovered every night to learn more about his present world. First, he learned about the continent he was born into, called Dicathan, which comprises 3 major kingdoms: Elenwar, the elven kingdom deep in the forest; Darv, the vast underground kingdom and home of the dwarves; and Sapin, the human kingdom and most populated region. Although his previous world and current world share a similar system, the rulership in his current world is passed down rather than earned. Art discovered that the world he currently lives in is vastly underdeveloped compared to his previous one, and he realized that the reason for the lack of technological advancement is because of magic. In his previous world, they had a life force called Kai, which practitioners used to strengthen their bodies and weapons through rigorous training. In his present world, there is a similar life force called Mana, which exists all around and can be used in various ways. The 2 common methods of using mana are augmenting and conjuring. The augmenting method enhances the user's body with mana, allowing them to possess incredible strength, defense, and abilities. However, its weakness lies in its limited range. The conjuring method allows users to emit mana to the outside world, allowing them to bend their surroundings to their will. Speaking of will, we would like you to help give us more willpower to keep making videos by hitting the subscribe and like button. Thank you. However, they must supplement their own mana core with mana from the outside world to form spells. Art's mother used a method called Deviant, specifically an emitter, to treat his injury. There are rare mages who can cast unique restorative mana. According to a book Art read, a mage's first awakening happens between early adolescence to late teenage years when their core manifests. It sounds similar to the Kai in my previous life, Art said. In his previous life, children were taught how to meditate and sense the fragments of Kai scattered inside their bodies and gather them into a single place. As Art tried to learn how to use mana, his mother came inside from his back and carried him back to his room. It has been a little over 2 years, and yet Alice still feels like she is learning more about her baby with each passing day. She has come to the conclusion that Arter is the most adorable baby, with his little patch of auburn hair and bright azure eyes that seem to gaze at her intelligently. Alice has decided to become a strict mother because she knows that Arter will face challenges in the future, and she does not want to rely solely on Ray. One day, Alice caught Ray trying to teach Arter how to fight, even though he could barely crawl. She realized that Arter loves going to the small merchant's strip in central Ashbur, so instead of shopping twice a week, They now go downtown every other day. Watching Arthur grow up so quickly, Alice wonders what he will be like when he is older. With Ray as his father, she has no doubt that he will have an interest in becoming an adventurer. However, she can't help but worry and can only hope he fares better than the native young teens hoping to make it big as adventurers. Alice thinks she could do something to prevent Arthur from sneaking into the study. It has been approximately 2 years since Arthur first made his difficult journey to study. He has learned a lot of fascinating things, and every day he watches his dad chant something for a few minutes, concentrating really hard. Arthur wonders what kind of magical phenomenon his dad will conjure next, and then he sees the stones rise up. Reynold told his son, that was watching him from the open window, that he was awesome when he was swinging things ups and downs with his power. He uses 3 mins of his utmost concentration to fling something he can physically throw with less effort. Then, Alice came and asked his son, Art, that was watching his dad. Then he ruined the front yard again. Art thought he learned fairly early that his father was an augment and wondered what he would be when his monocore awakened. He was crying and trembling. His eyes seemed to need a nap, said Alice, his mother. Art asked for a book instead of taking a nap, but his mother refused. Then he utilized his power. He popped and pushed. Then his mother was frightened and then allowed him to read. I'm not a doting mother. His age needs a lot of play, and I baby-proofed the room, said Alice. A great warrior must utilize every weapon in the arsenal. Then his mother heard a crash outside, thinking her husband had knocked down another tree, and told Art she would be back. Aside from the accumulated knowledge of this world, my biggest accomplishment is my progress. My monocore, said Art to himself. He spent 2 years moving tens of thousands of tiny fragments of mana inside his body and gathering them for 2 years to hear his solar plexus. He said he could see why it would take until adolescence to form naturally, seeing how slowly these fragments gravitate toward the center of his body. It's an arduous task both for his body and mind, but those 2 years have not gone to waste, he thought. Reynold had to cut the last piece of a tree. Then boom, a striking light evoked from the tree. Then Reynold jumped and held his wife and stood still. Alice, Art's mother, said his son was still inside. Then his father quickly ran to pick him up. There they saw their son in the air. His mother was surprised that he was not even 3. Art said he felt great. So this is what it feels like to have a monocore. Even the trees look greener. Then he realized their house had been destroyed. Besides rebuilding our house, a lot has happened this past year, along with Mom teaching him some basic maths and learning the basic of mana manipulation and augmentation. His body was too small to be sparing the basic body workouts. His father got him a wooden sword on his 3rd birthday and told him his match should flow if monocore with his breathing. So he began training, practicing all day, whacking and swinging his sword. He was not going to rest until he was done with training and had to study before dinner. In this world, strength is measured by the color of the monocore. The monocore starts off black due to the body's blood and other impurities mixing with the mana particles forming the monocore. The monocore becomes purer as the impurities are filtered out over time. The order of the monocore is black, red, orange, yellow, silver, and white. Each stage is split into 3 shades, dark, solid, and light. The lighter the monocore, the purer it is and the more power it has. Art doesn't want to have his dinner because he wants to learn. Alice called her husband to say it was time to get Art, his son, a proper mentor. Alice said he was only 4 years old. Besides, you will be able to teach him. At just 4 years old, I never expected our son to be such a mana manipulation prodigy. I'm holding him back. He's got so much potential. I'm not having my child leave home to some city hundreds of miles away, said Art's mother. Reynold said Zyrus isn't just some city and will ensure his friend takes care of him. Art's parents also asked him if he had a say in this matter. Do you want to go to a big city and have a real teacher? Art was surprised when he was left to decide. Isn't this a bit too much of an ask of a 4-year-old? He said that can't his mom and dad come along and meet the teacher together? They both thought them going together might feel better about it to test the teacher to meet him. Art was shocked to overhear his parents leaving early the next day for Xyrus City. His mother told him not to read any book at night and sleep very early to embark on the journey that they are heading out early tomorrow, in which Mom's and Dad's old friends from the Twin Horns are also going to Xyrus. The party consisted of 2 conjurers, and 3 augmenters would help with whatever troubles we might run into. Finally, they get to move on from their small, quiet town. Reynold thanks his friend, Fellas, for taking them along and also getting to introduce his son, Art, to him. One of the conjurers rescued Art from one of the woman's tight hugs, Angela. Helen Shard told Art not to mind her and that she will need to get it. Everyone got acquainted, said Fellas, and prepared to move on, and they went with some chariots. They encounter some wolves at night along their journey, and the conjurers kill them off and gather them at night. Fellas asked Reynold what was holding up Arthur. He told him not to worry about it, that it's his first time traveling like this. So, his pop has been bragging nearly the entire way here that he was a genius mage. Fellas did a little stretching before going to sleep, then asked Reynold if he was sparing his boy that will he mind playing around with Art. Then he went ahead and grabbed him. Normal kids his age would barely be able to climb a flight of stairs, he said to Art. About to have a fight, Fellas asked him does he know how to reinforce his weapon right. Boy genius. Art realized that Redhead was out for blood when they were about to fight. Then he screamed out to his parents to get him out of this mess, but his father said he could do it. Then he grabbed his sword and moved towards Fellas, and both slashing, dodging, defending, swinging their sword and kicking each other. At that moment, Newton's third law of motion came to his mind. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Art thumb after a great fight with him. In one of the augments, a giant tall man gave Fellas a slap for having hellish training with Art, and also for giving him a hard fight that put him through to create the little monsters. Arthur was asked where he learned his fight from. Then he told them he learned by watching and reading Dad's books.